The shout came out of nowhere, sharp enough to scatter the fish and shatter the morning calm. "What do you think you're doing?" I spun around, nearly dropping my fishing rod, to see a woman storming toward me, clutching a clipboard like it was the Constitution itself. Her name was Evelyn Harper, and she was the self-appointed queen of our neighborhood's homeowners association. According to her, my quiet morning fishing on my lakefront property was a crime against the sacred community code. I thought she was kidding until she started quoting neighborhood water regulations like she owned the sky above. Have you ever had a peaceful day turn into a courtroom drama? Stick around, because this story of petty power, legal battles, and sweet justice will make you question every HOA you've ever dealt with. My name is Daniel Brooks, and I test the lake water for a living. After years of monitoring pH levels and treatment plants across Montana, I saved enough to buy a house on the shores of Silver Lake. It cost me 5 years of brown bag lunches and skipped vacations, but waking up to that glassy water, framed by pine trees, was worth every penny. That morning, the lake was still, the air crisp, and I'd been casting my line for maybe 20 minutes when Evelyn charged across the grass, her eyes blazing with the fury of someone who'd never been told no. She pointed at a shiny new sign. Community Water, HOA managed. I noticed it earlier but assumed it was some generic notice, not a personal attack. Turns out, I was wrong. "You're violating neighborhood rules," Evelyn declared, her voice loud enough to wake the dead. Curtains twitched in nearby windows as neighbors peeked out. I stayed calm, explaining I was fishing on my land, but Evelyn waved her clipboard like a royal scepter. "This lake belongs to the community, and the HOA manages it." When I showed her my property survey, proving my land reached the water's edge, she scoffed, dismissing it as outdated. Then, with a smirk, she banned me from the lake, threatening a $500 fine. Before I could respond, she was on her phone, calling the cops, describing me as a dangerous individual threatening community safety. I stood there, rod in hand, watching my peaceful morning morph into a legal showdown. 40 minutes later, sirens announced Officer Tom Reynolds' arrival. Evelyn had positioned herself by my property line, armed with a folder of evidence. Neighbors gathered, phones out, ready for the show. Evelyn's performance was Oscar-worthy, clutching her forehead as she claimed I'd threatened her. I kept my cool, presenting my 1987 survey map, complete with county seals. Evelyn interrupted, insisting the lake was community property. Officer Reynolds, a seasoned cop with a no-nonsense demeanor, studied the map. His expression shifted from stern to puzzled. "Ma'am, this survey shows his property extends to the water," he said. Evelyn's face reddened, but she doubled down, shouting that the HOA's rules trumped old papers. Reynolds warned her about misusing emergency services, and as he left, I caught Evelyn's glare, promising this wasn't over. The next morning, my front door was plastered with 5 violation notices. My mailbox was too blue, my lawn was too tall, and I hadn't filed an activity impact assessment. Total fines, $1,300. The pettiness was almost impressive. I grabbed a measuring tape and staged a mock inspection of my lawn, calling out to a neighbor's doorbell camera. "Is my grass 2.1 or 2.2 inches? Should I call the FBI?" It was absurd, but I was done being intimidated. That's when Margaret Ellis, a 71-year-old neighbor with a sharp wit, approached me. "Evelyn's been terrorizing this place for 3 years," she said, listing victims of Evelyn's reign. "Christmas lights fined, gardens banned, kids scared to play. You're the first to stand up to her." Evelyn escalated, sending a lawyer's letter demanding $1,300 within 48 hours or a lien on my property. She delivered it personally, smirking. This is what happens when people don't know their place. That evening, Margaret slipped me a note. "County Courthouse, 1973 lake permits. Look into it." She hinted that Evelyn's claims about HOA control over the lake might be baseless. Meanwhile, Evelyn went public, hosting a community safety meeting in the courtyard. Her posts on the neighborhood forum showed angled photos of me fishing, captioned with warnings about dangerous rule breakers. At the meeting, she stood on a makeshift stage, clipboard in hand, declaring me a threat to property values. When I asked to speak, she shut me down, and the crowd, 35 residents strong, voted to exile me. I was a pariah. Neighbors avoided me, kids crossed the street, and even the pizza guy eyed me suspiciously. Feeling defeated, I considered selling the house. While cleaning my garage, I found a box labeled Silver Lake Agreements, 1973 to 1985. Inside was a 1973 court ruling granting my property exclusive water access rights, fishing, boating, everything explicitly barring HOAs from interfering. The documents were pristine, stamped with county seals, and legally ironclad. A colleague in environmental law confirmed their power. Daniel, these predate the HOA by a decade. You could legally block everyone from the lake. Armed with this, I planned my counterattack. Evelyn's final blow was a letter from her husband's law firm, threatening a $30,000 lawsuit for harassment and property devaluation. I called her, proposing a public meeting by the lake. She laughed, confident she'd crush me. The next morning, under clear skies, I laid out the 1973 documents on a picnic table. Margaret recorded discreetly as Evelyn arrived, clipboard raised like a weapon. She dismissed my evidence, but Officer Reynolds, called to mediate, verified the document's authenticity. "The HOA has no jurisdiction here," he said. Evelyn unraveled, shouting, then pleading, finally admitting she couldn't lose control of the community she'd built. As neighbors grasped the truth, they turned on Evelyn. "What about our fines?" one asked. Another yelled, "She made up half the rules." I offered a deal: void my fines and admit the error, or I'd enforce my full rights, potentially tanking their property values. Evelyn refused, storming off. That night, an emergency HOA meeting drew a record crowd. Residents aired years of grievances, fines for holiday lights, band gardens, scared kids. Evelyn was voted out 28-4, Margaret became interim president, and my fines were voided 31-0. Evelyn didn't even vote, sitting in the back, muttering about ungrateful residents. 3 days later, for sale sign appeared in Evelyn's yard. Moving trucks followed, and she left a bitter letter blaming the community for choosing chaos. The neighborhood transformed overnight. Margaret's leadership brought cleanups, barbecues, and fixed playgrounds. I posted a sign, "Brooks Water Rights, 1973. Fishing welcome." Neighbors cheered as the HOA's plaque hit the trash. Apologies poured Ina pie from one couple, chalk drawings from kids. The cashier who'd snubbed me shared her own Evelyn horror story. I took an advisory role to prevent future disputes, and the lake became a community hub, with kids learning to fish and parents relaxing without fear. Months later, I got a call from an HOA in Billings, facing a similar tyrant. I began advising communities across Montana, turning my ordeal into a workshop on handling power-hungry leaders. Evelyn, I heard, joined a Phoenix HOA, likely starting her reign anew. But in Silver Lake, we learned to question authority and demand evidence. My morning fishing is peaceful again, often with Margaret's company, sipping coffee as we watch the water. The lake, once a battleground, now binds us together. This fight wasn't just about fishing, it was about standing against unchecked power and injustice. Have you faced a bully like Evelyn in an HOA or elsewhere? Share your thoughts below, especially on how we confront tyranny and unfairness in our lives. Take a stand. Tell us your view. Your voice matters.